Hello and welcome to Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work,
It's game. I had to steal your thunder. It's a brand new season.
oh, okay. Let's meet the panel.
I'm Ari.
Charlie.
And I'm Josh. Ari, welcome back, and thank you for letting us film in your lovely-looking place.
Yeah,
It looks very homely, I would say.
it's also very nice to see, but you can't see that part of the room.
Where's the drum set at?
That's my book, Charles.
Sorry.
What are we going over today, Zach?
An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce.
Yep. One of the most spectacular short stories that there's ever been. Kurt Vonnegut said that it was the greatest short story of all time, which is quite something. And the Twilight Zone even had an adaptation that was based off of
Roger Jacket.
the French. It was a French film that won at the Cannes Film Festival.
I
And
heard they might be making a remake, but I don't know
Really?
what knowledge there is behind that. But
already, what's the first question?
Okay, did you see Peyton Farquhar as a criminal, and did you at least feel sympathy for him?
I had sympathy for him. Now,
so do I.
yeah, I mean,
I agree with the rest of you.
I had sympathy for him because, you know, unless you truly deserve something like that. Now, what his offense has been, I don't know per se, but
He was a criminal in the eyes of the authorities.
yeah.
And the authorities just went to the step of sentencing him
Yeah.
to hang.
I mean,
Yeah.
now I'm assuming, you know, because I read this last night and I found it very interesting, but you know, sad of course. But you got to give somebody, you know, their last, you know, what I think is, you know, their last rights, you know. But back then there was no such thing. It's like you're dead, okay.
One thing that they mention
Yeah.
in the story is Mr. Peyton Farquhar and his wife, they get water for
Right.
this
This
man
soldier.
Yeah.
who turns out being a federal scout.
Federal.
Yep.
And that's the trap that he falls at. But granted, it was anybody that interferes with the railroads.
Yeah. There was all these
Yeah.
posts with I think the trees had little guns in them. I could be wrong. Or like the little there was
There
a
were
line.
just people with snipers
Oh, they had snipers. Okay.
throughout the.
Yeah.
But they couldn't hit him because he kept diving underwater.
Kept diving.
That is exactly true.
They had cannons and stuff like that. You know, heavy artillery, light artillery. You know.
Yeah, you definitely feel sympathy for the character because like
Yeah.
it's in the case where it's like, oh well, he hasn't really done anything wrong in our eyes, only in the eyes of the people who are running stuff.
And it's just natural to see this struggling person who you really don't know much of. If you don't know much about him, you take it for the fact that he is, I don't know if you could say a good person, but you definitely can't say a bad person.
Yeah, I'd say that like an example is something similar. Is one of my favorite television shows. It's called Lake 7, and what it basically is that the criminals are the guys that you're looking at, and they're supposed to be the good guys against the corrupt Federation. Star Wars is the same way, you know, with the Galactic Empire, but we're looking at the Rebel Alliance. So that was a popular theme in the 70s, at least. This is older, but it was a popular theme in the 70s where you follow the guys who, in the eyes of like the Federation or the Galactic Empire, are actually the bad guys. So it's almost the same kind of thing here.
A lot of things were popular in the 70s.
Yeah, I would say that this was when the Twilight Zone adapted it. It was
It was
19
It was in the 60s.
It was 1962 when the French film came out. It was in the last season of the original series.
Yeah,
We're going to have a lot, we're going to be talking so much about that later.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, for me, if I see somebody coming out now, of course, but this was over, you know, over 100 years ago, we'll say. You know, if somebody's coming to me on a horseback, sir, I need some water. Yeah, sure. Okay, let me get you some water. There you go. And I think he started a conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably what got him in trouble, because he was asking questions that were, that
He
were.
fell into a trap.
Yeah.
And in
Just-
that case,
Just goes to show you, when you do a good deed, you get the boot no matter what happens.
That's an interesting question, though. Was it a trap or was it maneuvers? Like was it could it have been anyone?
a lot of it's
Not
also
just-
being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
yeah.
That's exactly what happened to John Proctor. I felt he was. Some could argue that he was a pedophile, but at the same time,
Crucible was a good book.
yeah, it was. He was in the. He sparked his maid off at the wrong time, and she threw him under already. Next question.
Would you classify this story in a specific genre? If so, what genre?
Historical, maybe?
I agree. I think either Ambrose Bierce, in the collection that I have of his stories, it's classified as war. A lot of people classify it as horror. I would not.
I would probably say maybe war history, something like that. Definitely historical, because it's.
It was Civil War influenced, as was a lot of Ambrose Bierce's work.
I'm going to throw a curveball here and say that this could be thrown as a fantasy, and I'll explain why.
Sounds kinky.
It's the ending to the story that makes me think this, because you believe you're made to believe that for the entire story what is going on is happening, but then you also feel that while it's happening it doesn't seem quite right, and at the end he finds out that he's been dead the entire time. In the term of fantasy, it's like you were following a story that never actually happened.
Depends on how you define fantasy. I don't know. In the traditional sense, fantasy usually refers to characters that are in situations that could never possibly happen. In this case, it seems like if you were subject to be hanged.
And we are both college graduates. We got our 4 years in English. Shout out to all of us.
There's a good chance that you would be in the same position. You would be in that dreamlike state.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be. If there was a unicorn, that may be another story.
Yeah. I think what I meant to say was more.
I'm Charlie the Unicorn.
I think it's not fantasy; it's a fantasy because of the dream state.
It would be his fantasy.
Yeah, that would make more
not,
sense.
It wouldn't be fantasy in the degree that a lot of the young adult works are today.
I would probably like fantasy. I like that. That's a good curveball.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hit that one out of the park. How I would see it as a fantasy. Now this goes against everything we've been saying, but as a fantasy, this guy wants to go home to his kids and his wife and his home. Well, if I have a noose around my neck, I want to go home, play my. Well, we didn't have drums back. Well, we did, but not like high tech DW, Ludwig, Slingerland. I can go on. I would want to go home and provide for my kids, my family. That would be the fantasy I see it, but not. This is my curveball.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's not the fantasy genre. It's more a fantasy. I would still stick to the primary genre of this story being historical. I would think.
And like I said, if I had
historical or war,
or war, yeah.
If I had a noose around my neck, I would be like, well, I can make up a short story in my mind right now to pass the time, because, it's all militarized. You have to. There's a certain way of carrying everything out. It's all like the captain salutes the chief salutes the captain, and then they all have. It's very. I think in the story it was the soldiers had a watch, and they were at what's called parade rest. For those of you that don't know, or for our newer viewers, or for those of you that see my lovely face on this camera hopefully every time, I play in a Scottish band, and that is very militarized. Everything is done in order.
Down to the kilt.
Yeah, I wear a kilt. Not now, but yes. So it's all, very structured, very
That's what we
You
do
know.
with literature as well, even though the question is whether it really needs to be structured.
Yeah, that's the black and white.
Yeah, and I agree with Josh.
And there's
this
so
is
many
a
gray
full-time
areas
story. Yes.
already.
Next
question.
question, please.
How would you describe the occurrence that went on with Farquhar in his imagination in comparison to what happened?
From the way that it is described, it is the process between them putting the noose around his neck and when they let the boards go and he hangs. So it is... at first I thought that it was his afterlife state, but the way that they describe it, it is the thing that he's thinking of right before.
He's in, and if you read that bit part in my book anyway, it's divided into 3 parts. I don't know if
It's the same thing with him.
Okay, so in the 3rd part, you notice that on multiple occasions he's explaining about the pain he's feeling. So a lot of it is in his neck, down his spine, and I think that
And was it in the hands as well because he was tied by the hands?
it's possible. I mean, I was just going by the
I mean, pain is pain. You know, the other day I got hit in the head and I'm like, huh?
But the thing is that it's possible that it's an even smaller time window than what Josh just said. This could be the few milliseconds it took that he just fell off the plank or fell off the bridge and got hanged. That entire dream state could have happened in just a matter of seconds. So I think the fact that he's feeling pain more and more and more as the story progresses and he gets more and more tired, that should be an indication that he's probably dead or is dreaming his last thoughts.
I mean, at the end of the story, it's at the very end of the dream, he gets this whipping pain right in his neck,
and you also hear the sound of bullets too. Whether they're shooting at him or not is unclear, but that sound is mentioned.
There was a line, I don't know, I think it was in the first, or I don't know, I think it was in the 2nd part. I'm quoting, unless you have it with
Yeah, with the sound like the shock of a cannon.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what
what I
it was.
wanted to say was, like in the 2nd part, there was all the sounds were bothering him, and it turned out that
They were intensified.
the taking of
This
his
is all
watch.
about sound and it's all about the senses in this story.
That's what a
Yeah.
good story is meant to be, because you're supposed to
Exactly.
you're supposed to connect to the reader, and you do that through showing
And to make it
telling.
even better, it's a dream state, and because it's a dream state, if you're exemplifying the pain that he's feeling and what he sees and when he hears and everything, by exemplifying that, you make the reader believe that he got away, even though he didn't.
And it puts you in his situation as well.
What would
So-
you do? Don't answer that.
Oh, I won't.
Next question.
Next question.
This story was adapted into a short film that was shown on the Twilight Zone. Did you find the adaptation to be faithful?
As much as it could possibly be.
It was made definitely. It was to have more of a science fiction mystery atmosphere, but they did a good job with it.
I think they also wanted to. The thing that they cut out had to do with the federal scout that came to the Farquhars and asked for
I
a glass of
I
water.
don't think. I think they could have gotten away with not needing it. They didn't
Yeah,
really.
because it's all about.
It would have made it. It would have made it a little. Like in Twilight Zone, you don't usually have flashbacks.
It's centered around the fact that he was thinking about his wife and children was enough, and then the fact that they showed his struggle was also enough for that. And I think that it wasn't traditional in the way Rod Serling made mention at the beginning for the first time. This and this was,
Yeah.
and there was barely any speaking whatsoever.
Oh no, that's what I
think
liked
there was-
about
I
it.
think that maybe the orders that was
That was
and,
what I was saying.
and
Take it
Rod
and
Serling's
The
monologue.
teleplay was by Robert Enrico and it was aired on February 28th, 1964, which happens to be his birthday.
Wait, that's your
Ah.
birthday?
Yep.
But not the year, right?
No,
Nah, he's not that old.
No,
No,
you
I'm
don't look it. You're fine.
I'm not that old.
Kidding.
But But otherwise,
this was the final season. I think it was a final season.
I think the final season, Rod Serling, he only wrote 6 of the episodes.
I wonder how many cigarettes he smoked on camera.
That was unfortunate. He was a chain smoker, and that's what cost him prematurely. He was still a brilliant man.
But I enjoy the stories that when Twilight Zone was not just written as a script or a teleplay, but if it was already an original story and they decided to, like I know that Occurrence with Owl Creek Bridge. I actually have a book here with all the original stories, or most of them anyway. I know Damon Knight wrote Serve Man. I'm not sure if that was directly for Twilight Zone. I don't think
Rod
so.
Serling wrote the script for the episode. Damon Knight just wrote the story.
Yeah, I believe just about all the stories in here. Like, that perfect example, Richard Matheson's Death Ship. That was not strictly for Twilight Zone. That was because it's also in that time travel book. If you saw the Sound of Thunder episode that we did last season, and I had the time travel book, Death Ship is in that book as well, the collection. So there were a few Twilight Zone episodes that were actually proper stories before they made it to the screen.
Another thing I wanted to say about the leaving out of with the scout. I think it's already assumed that the viewer of this, if you're watching the Twilight Zone, it's already assumed that you know what's already happened. So they're doing that probably to save time.
Yeah, I'm an RTF major, so I learned when it comes to television, they need to be more snappy. With books, you can make things, you spread things out a little more.
Any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Indeed, I really enjoy this story. It's one of my favorite Twilight Zones. It's good as a standalone short story as well. I just like the because like he goes through so much, and
You
then
feel bad for
suddenly you feel bad for him. But like from the third act, beginning of the third act onwards, he just is doing his absolute best to try and get back to his life. He thinks he's escaped, and he wants to go back to his wife. And the moment he sees his wife, you're like, whoa, he actually made it back. This is great. And then you realize, oh, he's been dead for several minutes.
That's the kind of time building that is just so magnificent. The same that probably some of the best so close but yet so far away moments with this, but also The Monkey's Paw by W.W.
Wow.
Yeah, was that the one with the 3 wishes? Or?
Yeah, it was with the 3 wishes. But
I know that Are You Afraid of the Dark did,
Yes, I am.
Did an episode that was based directly off that story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure other TV shows have done
that idea of tasting, being so close to something that you can taste it and then just be pulled away is just.
I have a perfect example of that.
Yes.
A lot of you know that I love cookies, and for our new viewers, welcome. I have OCD, obsessive cookie disorder, and I had a dream one night that
That's one day. No.
Yeah, right. I was sound asleep, but it was after a rough day, and I was on a diet, and I hated it, but I fell asleep, and I was actually tasting an Oreo in my sleep. Now this actually this can happen. Yeah,
you didn't have the Oreo.
Well, I woke up in one of my stuffed animals. Yes, I know. 24, still sleeping with a stuffed animal. Well, you know what? Forget that. But still, that's neither here nor there. But I actually woke up and I'm like, what the heck? Oh my God! I killed it. But I actually was tasting the Oreo in my sleep. This happens to a lot of people. It'll be taste,
Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to say.
And there's another thing about this story.
Do we have any Oreos here?
No. There is another thing about the story that I really enjoy is the pacing. This is probably, out of all the short stories I've read, and I've read quite a few, this one probably has one of the simplest and easiest to follow, and it has really good pacing. Everything happens as if it was going to happen when it happens.
So you would say this?
I think that, and it's very real as well.
You would
Yes.
say this takes the cake.
Yes, I feel significantly for Peyton Farquhar.
Me too.
I think he was just what's it called?
Wrong place.
A misunderstood
Oh, yeah.
or it was like a miscommunication. And I like Josh said, it was a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
And that is really in retrospect what this story is about.
Already, we got some reading suggestions as well. We'll start with Ari's
This
Twilight Zone
is
book?
the Twilight Zone, the original stories. It has like 30 different stories. They were all in the Twilight Zone. Jerome Bixby's It's a Good Life, Damon Knight's To Serve Man, Ray Bradbury's I Sing the Body Electric. They're all in here. I'm not sure if this is in print anymore. This is a really old book.
We can tell.
Yeah, the year is kind of, the back of the book got ripped off, so I don't know what year this is.
We can probably.
It's probably on the inside. Oh, copyright 1985. So this is old. So
It's 30 years old.
You-
around the time of the 80s series.
yeah, you might be able to find this on Amazon or something. It's very interesting, but I would assume that it would be expensive because it's been around for a while. There's probably not many copies that have survived the 30-year journey. So, if you're interested in this, I would strongly suggest in the story. I would actually strongly suggest watching the Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge Twilight Zone episode, which can probably be found online. But if you want to read the story, I would strongly suggest go with Josh's
Already,
option.
my suggestion would be the complete short stories of Ambrose Bierce. The complete short stories of Ambrose. This has everything that Bierce has written, everything from his war stories to his horror stories
That's a
to
new
his
version.
tall tales. From
Yeah, it makes him look
he
like
had a
his
very
grandfather.
eventful life, but he eventually disappeared in the 1910s. I want to say it was late 1913. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators.
Yay!
For now, keep reading.
And have a great time reading.
Read.